Yo, what's going on, people? Thank you for tuning in to the 90th edition of the MMA Podcast. We got a full house tonight. We're going to be breaking down UFC Fight Night Brown versus Silva this past Saturday in Cincinnati, Ohio. Matt Brown putting on a clinic against Erick Silva, getting the third round TKO. We're going to talk about that fight, talk about a bunch of other fights on the card. We had some impressive finishes by Soa Palele, Darren Cruikshank, a lot more. We're also going to talk about Bellator 119, the pay-per-view coming up this weekend. Eddie Alvarez is out, replaced by Will Brooks. Still going to be a pay-per-view. Rampage versus King Mo, Michael Venom Page, a bunch more. I'm ready to do it. You ready to do it? Let's do it, cocksuckers.
You're listening to the MMA Podcast.
That's right. Thanks for tuning in to the MMA Podcast, episode 90. I'm shocked we made it this far. In a couple months, we're going to hit 100. That's going to be fucking wild. And the only reason we keep doing it, the only two reasons we keep doing it, is because of the cool motherfuckers listening to the podcast and the cool motherfuckers on the show now. It's me, and we actually have 5 other people on the call, so I'm going to pass it to them. You know them. All of them have been on multiple episodes of the MMA Podcast. First and foremost, I got to start it off with the original gangster. Me and him were the only 2 people on episodes probably 1 through 40. Still great friends, and I'm really happy we are. Chris, what the hell's going on, bro?
Oh my goodness. Oh my God. Here we are again, gentlemen. We're doing it. We're doing the damn thing. I'm higher than fucking Yahweh on the Apollo 17. I'm hitting the stratosphere. Don't follow me on Twitter. Follow all these other gentlemen. They're actually interesting. Thank you, Jake.
Not a problem, not a problem. We also got who is a guy who's been on a shitload of shows, patrolling the mean streets. We actually listened to him chase down a felon live just a couple weeks ago. He's Westland Eagle AH on Twitter. Alan, what's up, bro?
What's up, all you guys? I'm just a little exhausted, but hanging in there, getting to listen to the rest of you guys' opinions and chat a little bit.
Word. Thank you for coming on the show. We also have a guy. He I guess the next 2 guys I'm going to introduce took a little bit of time off, but we're glad to have them both back. The first one is the Gracie Ninja. What the hell's going on, man?
The world famous Gracie Ninja is honored to be here with you guys. Thank you so much for letting me be on here.
Not a problem. Thank you for coming on. And the other guy who took a little time off, we're glad to have him back. The reigning, defending Word on the Street champion. He beat me straight up in Twitter last night. He beat me straight up on the Word on the Street last night on the Word on the Street podcast. It's every Tuesday. Ross, what the hell's going on, man?
Jake, you sure you want to give me a live mic on a live podcast, unedited, with everyone listening? Are you sure you want all these people to hear my introduction and me tell people what I have to say? Well, let me just start by saying you can find me on Twitter at Ross Finkelstein, E before the L. You know the whole shtick. I'm the best Jew in the business. I don't have to tell you twice. But you see, I've turned a new leaf. You see, I've come back. I've won the belt back that I never lost, and I've beaten you. And now I'm on your show, and I'm going to embarrass you again. I'm going to be better than you tonight. I'm going to make better points.
It's funny. I actually didn't cut him off there. He legitimately got cut off. Ross, are you still with us?
See, you're already trying to sabotage what's going on? You're trying to take me down already? It's not going to work, Jake. Tonight, it's part 2 of the beatdown that I gave to you last night.
Yo, if I'm going to try and knock you down, it's not going to be me taking you off air. It's probably going to be me, like, playing a Joey Diaz drop or something.
Shut the fuck up.
Something like that. Ramses, I always got to save you for last, because in truth, no one can fucking follow you. The word on the street, it is honestly the best form of entertainment anyone can watch on a Tuesday night. Fuck Fox, fuck CBS, fuck NBC. We got Coach Jamie Huey on every night. We have interesting guests. Just a week and a day ago, we had a pretty well-known MMA cut man who had a crazy story. He was working, like loading stuff onto a shelf, bent over, and this giant thing fell off, hit him in the back of the head. He was concussed so bad, the dude needed to like write down shit he wanted to remember the next morning, and his mom had to fucking like tell him who he was a million times. Crazy shit. Crazy interviews. Ramses does not pull punches when it comes to asking the real guts and meat of the story. He's a good friend of mine. He's here tonight on the MMA podcast. What's going on, Ramses?
Thanks, Jake. It's an honor for you to have me on the MMA podcast.
It is.
Straight up, it's funny that you mentioned Joey Diaz. I just learned he is going to be in Austin, Texas, where I'm broadcasting from. For the next 3 days doing his comedy routines at the Cap City Comedy Club. I'll be there tomorrow night, people. If you want to meet me, now's your chance. Go to the Joey Diaz show tomorrow night. Cap City Comedy in Austin, whatever. I don't know what the fuck. I'll be there. That's a plug for Uncle Joey Karate, all right? The best MMA handicapper of all time, inspiration for my show, The Word on the Street. Check me out on Twitter, The Aunt Jimmy Show. Over 25,000 tweets so far. Everything I've said has been true or it's come true. So follow me. And I apologize for everything that happens with my bastard son, Ross Finkelstein, tonight here on this show. And that's the bottom line.
So you're saying tomorrow night at the Cap City Comedy Club in Austin, Texas, we can see Joey Diaz and the infamous Ramses from the Word on the Street podcast?
8 p.m. Central, Cap City Comedy Club, the Joey Diaz show in Austin, Texas. I'll be there.
What?
You'll know exactly who I am. I got an aura. Like, bring your chick, I guess.
Sucker.
She'll, and just ask her, straight up, just who's soaking you up right now? What is this? What are you doing? She'll point me out. That's how you'll know I got the word on the street. All right, I'm the king of this town. This city, Austin, it's my city. And that's the bottom line.
I broke into a house and ate her pussy one night on a Quaalude.
That's right, Joey Diaz. I saw him in Chicago. Hell of a show, but let's get to the MMA. The people tuned in for MMA, and we had a hell of a card this past Saturday in Cincinnati. Honestly, one of my favorite cards of 2014 so far. We're about halfway through May. I don't want to get straight to the main event, which might be the fight of the year to date. Let's start with the prelims. Albert Tumanov defeating Anthony Lapsley via first round KO in the welterweight division. Justin Salas with another nasty KO. First round, Nick Lentz, the heavy favorite over Manny Gamburian, winning the unanimous decision. Johnny Eduardo with a huge upset over Eddie Wineland, a guy who fought for the title recently. I think he was as high as like plus 725 or something. He wins first round KO. We had 3 of them on the prelims. The next three fights on Fox Sports 2 were all unanimous decisions. Zach Cummings, Team Darkside, getting the upset win over Jan Cabral. Kyoji Horiguchi defeating Daryl Montague at flyweight. Alan was pumped for that. And Ed Herman defeating Rafael Sapo Natal via unanimous decision. Another upset there. At the middleweight division, let's wait till we get to the main card. Johnny Eduardo won performance of the night for his KO over Eddie Wineland. What did you guys think? What fight stood out? Tonight we're literally just doing a format sort of like the word on the street. If you don't want to say anything, you don't have to. We're not going to do a speaking order. I'm just going to throw it out there. Whoever wants to speak their piece, speak their piece. I'll let it out, all the awkward silence in post, cocksuckers. Who thought fight stood out on the prelims? Anyone?
I'll start off. Why not? Really want to highlight the fight that stood out the most is Johnny Eduardo knocking out Eddie Wineland, and I think that's the one that stood out pretty much to everyone here, besides Ramses, of course. This fight, well, he's
Son of a bitch.
asshole anyway, bastard father. Johnny Eduardo was a huge underdog. Actually, he's the biggest underdog in UFC history to ever win a fight. He's the biggest dog to ever cash in the history of the UFC, which is incredible. It was actually Thiago Santos who set that, I think, just a couple weeks back with his victory over Hani Marquez. But Johnny Eduardo now has that. I thought this was an awesome matchup to begin with because both guys are incredible strikers, and Johnny Eduardo, he's been out for a while, but he's won like 12 of his last 13. His only loss in a while is his UFC debut a couple years back to Rafael Assunção. And even though he's getting up there in age, he's still a staple at Nova União, and he's training with Renan Barão and Jose Aldo, and even guys like BJ Penn and guys like Hakron Diaz and Yuri Alcantara. So he's working with the best in the world. He's a fantastic striker, and when you put two really good high-level strikers in there, anything can happen. Johnny Eduardo hits hard. Eddie Wineland, he got hit, and he went down. I thought it was awesome. Johnny Eduardo is a guy to look out for at 135, and that was the fight that really stood out to me. So congrats, Johnny Eduardo.
Yeah, one interesting thing about that fight, guys, I don't know if you guys paid attention to either the Rogan Fight Companion podcast he did for this. Him and Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen watched the fights, did a podcast during the fights. Joe Rogan brought up an interesting fact, which makes this fight even more compelling, is the fact that Eduardo was out for over 700 days before he fought Eddie Wineland. So to come in there, put on that kind of a performance, he was super happy, knock out Eddie Wineland, a top 5 guy, the way that he did after 700 days of not competing. I mean, oh my God.
Yeah, that was fucking wild, and Wineland was by far his toughest opponent. Anyone else have anything to add? I know, Alan, you were real pumped for Kyoji Horiguchi.
Yeah, I really was impressed. I kind of had like my doubts because every fight he comes into, he's normally the smaller guy, but he finally dropped down to flyweight, so it's really good to see him fighting at 125 instead of 135. But I was impressed that he was able to stop the takedowns and keep the fight standing, and how he was able to close range. A lot of people take for granted like how fast the flyweights are, and whenever you're able to stand in a karate style stance and close distance like he was, and able to land those punches, it's really gonna, I think, help him in the flyweight division because he's gonna be able to get in and get out. Because some of the other big punchers like John Dotson and the other guys in the division, that's the exact same thing that's brought them success. So I definitely, I don't know if he can beat a guy like Mighty Mouse or Dotson, but I definitely think he can pretty much beat everybody else.
I got to give it up to our Team Dark Side member, Zach Cummings.
Yeah.
I'm very glad this guy made weight. He got his weight problems under control. He's one to look out for somebody to call anybody from our Team Dark Side an underdog is an utter shame, because we are coached by the greatest coach, the greatest man in the history of history, Shale P. Sonnen. So you better keep your eyes on Zach Cummings, because the future is his.
Ramses, what did you think about our boy Zach?
That was awesome. The dude made me a lot of money, an insane amount of money. Him and, of course, I'm sure, another shot. Well, I got to give props to, I'm sorry, Crookshank. Crookshank and Cummings, that parlay paid off. Then I made another parlay on Crookshank, Cummings, and Matt Brown. It was like a Hail Mary, and that one paid off too after I was already rich. This is a true story, people. But yeah, Zach Cummings, I had no doubt. I was a little nervous in that first round. I thought he'd lost the first round, honestly. He was getting the round stolen from him, basically. But that was a pretty good war, but he was in control the entire time. We talked to his training partner and his corner man, best friend, right now at the time, Tyler Minton, on my show. Dude, totally badass. I'm happy. I got money in my pockets. I'm gonna eat well for the next couple of weeks, and that's a blessing. And I just wanted to add something. I will be at the Joey Diaz comedy show tomorrow night here in Austin, but I just want to say to anybody out there, I will not respond to you. I don't want you to look at me or talk to me. And if I see anybody even try to take a picture of me, I'm gonna take the footage right out of your camera or cell phone, whatever you kids are doing these days. So that's a fair warning. Stay away from me, but enjoy the show. I mean, I'll see you there, but seriously, don't look at me. Word on the street.
All right, Ramses, with a fair warning for anyone who goes to the Cap City Comedy Club tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central to see Joey Coco Diaz. Let's move from the prelims to the main card. We'll talk about all the fights except obviously the main event. I fucking closed out the tab. There we go. The main card, all the fights except Brown and Silva. We had Chris Carriasso with an upset win over Luis Smolka via split decision. Soa Palele finishing Juan Potts via first round KO. Neil Magny with an upset over Tim Means, unanimous decision. Darren Cruikshank with a big upset over Eric Koch, the TKO in the first round. Costa Philippou, another upset over Lorenz Larkin. It was full of upsets, another first round KO. Philippou, Cruikshank, Magny, Palele, and Carriasso. All of them upsets except for Palele. What did you guys think of these fights? Once again, up in the air. Whoever wants to speak first can speak.
Fuck it, I'll go. The shank, man. The Crookshank. That was the highlight, dude. That was awesome. Another money maker for me. The dude was at least a 4-1 underdog. It was an honor seeing this guy fight once again. Back to his element, his roots, 100% with the striking. He was letting it go, his hands and feet. I hate seeing cautious Crookshank. That didn't happen. This time the Detroit superstar, he just whooped ass. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't holding back. Didn't look like he was injured or whatever, man. This Detroit rock star, man, he is one of the best. There's a reason. He's even one of Joe Silva's favorite, man. We can't get enough of the Michigan mullet man or whatever. I don't know. Darren Cruikshank, man, he's a great guy. He's been on the show a few times on the MMA podcast. It was an honor speaking with him. He is deadly when he just lets it go, and that's what he's done. Hopefully he sticks to it. And just props to the Detroit Super Rock.
Here's a question for you guys. Here's a question. Darren Cruikshank has had 3 TKOs or KOs that were started with a head kick. Can you name one other fighter in any division ever that has the same honor as him? Anybody?
Wait, a head kick? Wait, I'm sorry. Repeat the question.
A head kick leads to a knockout. So it doesn't necessarily mean you knock someone out cold with a head kick, but it rocked them and then you finished them. There's only one other person on the roster right now that can say that they did the same thing.
Am I allowed to answer? Or
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I would
anybody.
like to answer.
Okay, then Vitor.
There you go.
Bullshit. I'd like to counter that. Currently on the roster, and he's done it. My Thug Jitsu master, Yves Edwards, on that one fool back in the day. Probably before you guys had even heard of MMA.
but 3. I'm saying 3.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, you're talking about Josh Thompson, but that was one time.
Nah, man. There's been other. What do you guys? Nah, man. He's kicking people in the head all the time and then knocking them out. What are you talking about?
No, two straight head kick knockouts.
Wait, now it's straight in a row?
Yes.
Like I said, I didn't hear the original question. But
Listen,
but
yeah.
Yves Edwards is better than
Stop
all the
getting
people that
drunk all
you
the
just
time.
mentioned. That's the bottom line.
That's why Crookshank beat him.
freak.
Stop leaving to get a pack of cigarettes and not coming back home.
That was a decision.
You
It was
know
a
I don't
split
like
decision.
playing
Pack
Tickle
cigarettes.
Monster late
Yeah,
at night.
and he comes back fucking 25 years later. Father. Piece of shit. Continue, Jake. I'm sorry.
Did
I was
Crow Cop
gonna
ever do
say
that?
Ramses needs to stop breaking into Ross's room late at night to play Tickle Monster.
No,
I've seen
I
the
think
videos.
Crocop actually got head kicked 3 different times himself.
I thank you, Alan, for saving me from what Jake was about to say because it was not pleasant.
It's all playful touching. Anyone else? Thoughts on the main card?
I'll go 'cause I still have yet to actually speak on this topic. Yeah, these fights. First of all, So Palele. Actually, the first thing I want to say is, wow, did I lose a lot of money? The next thing I want to say is, So Palele is fucking awesome. That was like his 12th knockout in a row. 12 straight knockouts. That's insane. He's already got his next fight booked against Jared Rochelle, which is going to be a fucking fun fight. I like that fight a lot. Yeah, look out for So Palele. He's really improved his game.
Okay, are you done?
Well, the fights.
I just want to say a fuck you to everybody who doubted So Palele back in December when everybody betted against him. I betted for him. I picked Soa, and he is continually putting down the doubters.
So Palele got knocked out by Eddie Sanchez. That is all.
Eddie Sanchez wasn't
Oh.
bad. Okay,
Don't even get
Screw
me
that.
started, people. on Eddie
Ramses, your
Sanchez.
thoughts on Eddie Sanchez?
I'll reveal the story someday, but wait, hold on.
Jews.
Who is Sola Palele the Hulk or is Mike Easton? What's going on here? How do we
Well,
Bruce
solve
Banner.
this?
You can't be 5'5", 145 pounds, or 50 at most, and be considered the Hulk. I'm
But
sorry.
it's been proven that he is fully torqued at all times.
And he's also from Washington,
That
D.C.
Homoerotic statement ever.
Yeah, that's our penis watcher.
Fully torqued.
These guys got the same
He's
nickname.
sponsored by
though.
Torque? That
This is
would
bullshit.
make sense if he had a sponsorship with Torque.
Fully torqued at all times.
If he's
Proceed,
wearing Torque
Ross.
clothing. Yeah. Anyway, Chris Carriasso is awesome. That fight with Luis Smolka was fun. Very close, back and forth. Carriasso winning. Tim Means losing to Neil Magny surprised me. I thought Tim Means was going to wreck him. I don't know what it is about Tim Means. For some reason, he just can't get it done on the big stage. But when he's fighting in the lower circuit, he destroys guys. I guess he'll always be a can crusher, but Neil Magny's a can, so it's a little interesting. And of course, Darren Cruikshank and Eric Koch. I thought Eric was going to knock him out. I thought it was going to be a fun fight, but I thought Eric was going to knock him out. Cruikshank proved me wrong. Cruikshank looked awesome. Getting it done in the first round really early, too, like 3 minutes. Yeah, awesome work by Darren Cruikshank. Fuck
Yeah,
you,
he's-
Dad.
Darren actually has had the most appearances of any UFC fighter. We had him on the first show. Definitely going to try and get him on again. Anyone else thoughts on the main card before we move on in the main event? Don't worry, I will edit out all the awkward silence. For anyone listening on Ustream, I'm sorry.
Wait, did this include the co-main event too?
Yes, Costa Philippou and Lorenz Larkin. That is covered in. Yeah,
Oh, I also would like to add on to that.
definitely.
Costa Philippou. All right. It's no secret I'm a Costa Philippou fan. Costa Philippou trains here on Long Island. He was formerly a part of the team at Serra-Longo, which is now Power MMA. Still Serra-Longo, but the gym is called Power MMA. Costa left the gym, but we still kind of cheer for him. We still root for him because he's friendly with everyone. I'm very critical of Costa lately. He lost his last 2 fights. I thought the decision to move to Belmore Kickboxing Academy was a horrible move. I thought if he wanted to fight for the title one day, train with the champion, train at Power MMA, work with your wrestling, because you're a fantastic boxer. You got a lot of power, but that's where you need to improve. He went the complete opposite direction. He decided to go work on his kickboxing some more instead of his wrestling, which was really stupid. Because of it, he got out-grappled by Carmont, and then he got destroyed against Luke Rockhold, not even with wrestling, just body kicked. And from what I heard from some people who know Costa, they say that Costa didn't really want to do this. He was just fighting for the money. He wasn't really fight. He wants to be like a firefighter or an EMT. He doesn't want to.
Or an astronaut or a farmer.
I forgot what exactly.
Prison guard.
Yeah. Yes, that's actually what it was. He wanted to be a prison guard. That's I'm not even joking. That's legitimately exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to be a corrections officer, and not a fighter. And to come out in this fight and knock out Lorenz Larkin the way he did, he looked awesome. He looked incredible. He looked like the old Costa Philippou. He looked like the Costa Philippou that went on a fucking tear in the UFC, winning 5 straight fights. I want to see more of this Costa. This is the good Costa. This is the Costa that can fight at the top of the division.
Mi Costa es su Costa.
Exactly. Mi Costa es su Costa. Costa for everyone. Costa, Costa, Costa. I love Costa.
My God.
Shut up, Ramsey.
I just want to say, this guy, Ross, I've never had a drop of alcohol in my entire life. You're a liar.
I have audio recordings of you saying how you were drinking on your podcast. So you want to debate me, Dad?
You're a liar. Costa Philippou is at least 44 years old. He's done, people. I don't even know what you're even talking about. He wanted to be a cop or something. What are you even talking about?
Costa Philippou knocked out a guy with 79% black explosive percentage, and you're telling me that he's a 44-year-old man who's done? What are you crazy? Are you drinking right now, Dad? You know what? I'm sorry. Jake, continue your podcast, please.
No. By all means, continue.
Fight was a work. I'm sorry.
You're a work. Every podcast you do is a work.
It's true. The word on the street does not exist.
This guy calls himself an MMA, some sort of expert, some sort of like he's got room
to have the word on the street. What street? Is this some street in Mexico?
You're trying to hype up English. Costa Philippou. The man's at least 56 years old, and you're trying to hype him up, man. Who's putting you up to this? That's all I got to say. I'm sorry that this had to happen on your podcast, Jake, and I'm done apologizing for my bastard son.
You've never apologized in your life, and I don't expect you to ever apologize, you bastard.
Things are getting very heated on the MMA podcast. Chris, what did you think of the main card?
You know what, man? Let's talk about Matt Brown. Matt Brown. My God. Everyone is on the Matt Brown hype train right now. I have loved the guy for a long time. Let's get real, people. Matt Brown has been dropped by Jordan Maine and Erick Silva. He hasn't fought anyone in the top 10, let alone the top 5. Let's kind of slow the roll, people. You know, I was on board. I'll admit, I tweeted out, give this man a title shot. But once the adrenaline wore off, once my boner just died down, I realized Matt Brown does not deserve that title shot. He has shown weakness against lesser competition. He hasn't faced anyone in the top 10. Having 7 wins like that, and the biggest name that he has is Stephen Thompson. And that dude... is nowhere near the top 15. And on top of that, he got a decision win over Stephen Thompson. Didn't finish him. Looked very conservative, used a wrestling arsenal. So when we're talking about the Hector Lombards or the Tyrone Woodleys or the Rory McDonalds or the Damian Mayas of the world, those guys would eat Matt Brown's lunch. So as much as I love the guy, just because he won 7 fights does not mean
We're not
that you
talking
get a
about
title
Brown
shot.
Silva yet. We're just talking about the main card. Any thoughts about the main card?
Well, fuck me.
Yeah, I didn't want to cut you off because you were on a roll, but fuck it, we will transition unless Alan or Ninja have something to throw in on the main card. I'll edit that out in post. Let's get to it. Matt Brown and Erick Silva. Yeah, it was a hell of a fight. Erick Silva owned the first 2.5 minutes, and then Brown roared back. Completely, it was two totally different fights. Erick Silva has the first half of the first round, rocks him with a body shot, takes his back, almost sinks in a rear naked choke, but Brown rallies back, a lot of stiff shots. And Chris, I think I disagree with your opinion, and I think a lot of people are going to. That's not a really popular one to take. I appreciate you taking it. And I see where you're coming from, but to question Brown's chin, I don't know if he has never been finished by knockout or TKO in his career. If he has any weakness, it's his sub defense, and he showed excellent, knowledge, sort of getting out of that rear naked choke with Erick Silva. He is now a brown belt at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And to say Stephen Thompson is his best win, I think Swick was a better win. I think Meehan was a better win. I think Pyle was a better win. And I think Silva, honestly...
as far as a striker, sorry, I want to throw that in there. As far as a pure striker...
I would say Meehan and Pyle. Pyle is a mean striker. I mean, Pyle is one of the most underrated guys. Pyle is a fucking beast, but Brown now 7 fight winning streak. The only 3 other fighters in the UFC with a streak of 7 or more wins in a row in the UFC currently are Renan Barão, John Jones, and Chris Weidman. So that's very good company to be in. And yeah, he definitely did go 1-4 before a streak, but he's turned it around. Hasn't lost a fight since 2011. I want to hear what the rest of you thought about the fight, and maybe think about Chris's point. Is Brown a legitimate title contender?
I want to start because...
Oh, God.
No, Ninja, please, go ahead.
Let me go first on this one. Because I have...
The Ninja was not pleased with Ross speaking first. He's like, oh, shit.
No,
Go ahead, Ninja.
I've got a bone to pick because I know Dana White listens to this podcast, because when the Ninja speaks, Dana White listens, and this is a perfect opportunity to give my Ninja Star of the Week to whoever's idea it is to show fights like this amazing fight everybody's telling me about on Fox Sports 1 and not on UFC Fight Pass. Has anybody tried to install cable in a Ninja cave before? It doesn't work. So unfortunately, the greatest person on this podcast, perhaps the greatest ninja of all time, did not get to see any of these fights because somebody made the decision not to show them on Fox Sports 1. So my Ninja Star of the Week goes right into the head of whoever decided that. It's sad. I'm trying to figure out how to see this fight. It's ridiculous.
Get
Dana
your ass
White,
out of the Ninja Cave
make it
into a
happen.
Buffalo Wild Wings, son!
All right.
Nothing? All right. Go ahead, Ross.
I will speak now. I am going... Well, first of all, the greatest person on this podcast and in the world did get to see the fights, and I will now speak.
Thank you.
I'm very happy that I did get to see the fights. Ninja, I will DM you. I will help you see these fights. I'll get on that later after the show. I'm going to argue Chris's point.
Totally legal.
Totally legal. Totally, completely legal. I'm going to argue Chris's point. Chris, you said Matt Brown does not deserve a title shot, and I absolutely 100% agree with you on that. I do not think Matt Brown deserves a title shot after this fight. However, I do think Matt Brown deserves a title shot after his next fight. I think Matt Brown should be given a number one contenders fight. And then from there, if he wins that fight, he should absolutely 1,000%.
But that's not a title fight. That's not a title fight. That's
No,
not what I'm talking about.
but
I'm talking about a title fight.
To basically to undermine what he's done in the last couple of years, you can't discredit him. I mean, the guy is on a tear. He's won 7 in a row now. Usually when you win 7 fights in a row, you have a title fight. But because obviously he hasn't fought the top 5 guys in the division, the top 10 guys. He's fought top 15 guys. He hasn't fought top 10 guys. He hasn't gotten a title shot yet. And because he was on kind of a rocky road. He had lost like 4 out of his last 5 before this. He obviously wasn't going to get a title shot anytime soon, but he's won 7 straight, and 6 of those fights have been by knockout or TKO, and the last 5 in a row have been by knockout or TKO. And yes, he got hit in the body, and he went down against Jordan Meehan, but a good shot to the body is going to put you down. Erick Silva hits so hard to the body, and every person that Erick Silva has kicked to the body has gone down. Every single person who has eaten a flush kick from Erick Silva to the body has gone down in their fight because he kicks with such force. Erick Silva's kicks are incredible. Jordan Meehan is a very good body puncher. So to go down from a body shot from Meehan or a kick, it's going to happen. I mean, the dude's chin is still fantastic, and he's got the heart of a champion. He's getting better and better. His one weakness, like Jake said, was the submission defense, his ground game. And he was passing Erick Silva. Erick Silva's a great grappler. He was passing Erick Silva. He got this like mounted, he got a mounted crucifix, I believe, at one point. He looked fantastic. And I think Matt Brown deserves a number one contenders fight. I think everything he's done is fantastic. Let's see this dude he was going to fight Carlos Condit instead of Erick Silva before. And if he beat Condit, everyone would be talking about fight for the title. So it sucks we can't see that fight, but yes, Matt Brown should fight for the title soon.
You know what, man? I do have to weigh in on the Matt Brown versus Erick Silva fight, people. With the word on the street, my opinion here. This damn fight, I won't say it was a work. I don't believe it was a work. But it was a setup. Erick Silva never had a chance against Matt Brown. And I'll tell you why exactly. Like, real talk, Matt Brown, what was it? He was addicted to heroin or something? This guy's been booting heroin. That's how serious he's been, to the depths of hell, all right? That's the word. That's where he's fighting from. He had the hometown advantage. This young kid comes in. This kid thinks he's basically the Backstreet Boy of Brazilian MMA. All right, this kid didn't have a clue. He left on a stretcher, people. He was broken into a million pieces. He was a tough kid, but, you know, it was payback for Sato as well. That was an illegal win. But Matt Brown, let's face it, man, he's chased a dragon before. And so kicking this young boy's ass was no problem whatsoever. And, you know, I'm ashamed that I had to profit so much off of such a horrible beating on a young man. But that's what happened, and that's life. That's not only the word on the street, that is the bottom line.
Alan, I think you're the last person to chime in. What did you think of the fight?
Like Ramsey said, there's no way in hell that Erick Silva was going to win this fight. He was facing one of the toughest American son of a bitches that has ever lived in the lines of Stone Cold Steve Austin. There's just no way. I'm sorry. I don't even have anything else really to say. It's Erick Silva. The guy gasses out in every single fight that he's in after any type of grappling situation takes place. The John Fitch fight, I mean, yeah, he put up a good fight, but let's just be honest.
Too much beach muscle.
It's not even that, man. It's his training methods. It's let's be honest, it's his training because Hector Lombard's twice his fucking size, and Hector Lombard doesn't gas out like that. I'm sorry. Erick Silva, he doesn't like to put in the time. I know what it's like to put in the time now, with especially wrestling practice, and that's probably the most important aspect as far as like cardio is wrestling drills, because that's the hardest fucking thing about MMA. And he's obviously not doing enough of them because he burns out after grappling. So I knew there was no chance for him to win the fight unless he got lucky with the leg kick. And he got the leg kick, but it wasn't enough. You're not going to stop Matt Brown unless somebody knocks Matt Brown out, or they tap him, or he's not going to tap out unless they choke him fucking unconscious. He's not going down. So bring on Johnny Hendricks, bring on fucking Tyron Woodley, bring on Hector Lombard, bring on Nick Diaz, whoever you got. I don't know if Matt Brown can beat them, but I want to see him try. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, and that you make an excellent point. Before we move on, I want to talk about that welterweight title picture, because we have Johnny Hendricks recovering from bicep surgery. We have Woodley and Rory, who it looks to be the winner of that match is probably going to be next in line at a title shot. The other two names I keep hearing, Hector Lombard, Matt Brown. Also, you have Nick Diaz. Who knows when he's going to fight next? What do you guys think should happen? What do you all think will happen? Open mic. Whoever speaks first, go ahead.
All right, I just want to put my 2 cents in there. I know this is a long shot, but I'm taking the chance on this podcast. That's what we do here at the MMA Podcast. I honestly think Brown is going to get Nick Diaz for a number 2 contender slot. So we're going to see, I think we're going to see Woodley and McDonald get the next shot. They're going to fight later this year. And then I think early next year, we're going to see the winner of Diaz and Brown face off against that winner.
I can dig it. Ross, Ramses, Allen, the Ninja.
What I don't think we're going to see Nick Diaz anytime soon, and there's no reason for me to believe Nick Diaz is coming back anytime soon. The winner of Rory McDonald and Tyron Woodley will fight for the welterweight championship. Johnny Hendricks is supposed to be cleared to return to training within the next few weeks. They said he would be cleared sometime in May, so he should be back relatively soon, maybe June, which means he's going to fight sometime around October, November, or September in that area. He will fight this year. Who's going to fight Matt Brown? That's kind of tough. I mean, Matt Brown should have a number 1 contenders fight next. I think it would be pretty good timing if you do. Obviously, you have McDonald and Woodley fighting for the number 1 contendership this June, the co-main event of UFC 174. That leaves Hector Lombard. That leaves Matt Brown. That leaves one more guy. Who are we missing? We're missing one more guy, and I'm completely forgetting him. No, I said Lombard. I said Matt Brown. And
sorry, I did a lot of crack before the show.
Guys, help us out. We're missing someone. Who is it?
What's got the Lombard. Weight class?
170. Lombard.
Where am I?
Kelvin.
Brown. Well, no, not Kelvin.
Kelvin.
Oh my God! I cannot believe I'm completely forgetting and blanking.
Condit.
Who is it? No,
Kim.
Condit has Dong Hyun Kim. Thank you.
Yeah. No
Yum Yum Kim.
Yes, Dong Hyun Kim is the other name, who needs to be mentioned in title contention. I think the best thing to do is to do Matt Brown and Hector Lombard winner fights for the title against the winner of Johnny Hendricks versus the winner of Rory McDonald and Tyron Woodley.
This is ridiculous.
I like that. Ramses?
Yeah. Ignore everything you just heard, people. It was nonsense. I apologize. Yeah, Matt Brown. I'll tell you exactly. I got the word on the street about Matt Brown. This is what's going to happen. He's going to come up with some sort of fake injury. He's going to sit it out for a while until they put together a card to finish out close to the end of the year back in his hometown again. All right. It's time to they're going to put Matt Brown over after this shit. All right. It was too good. And also, he's going to be, this is an exclusive here, breaking news. He's going to be now a downloadable new character for when you get the EA UFC sports game. He's going to be in one of those DLC packages, and that's the bottom line.
Alan Ninja, thoughts about the welterweight title picture?
All right. Dong Young Kim deserves the next title fight. He beat Matt Brown. Fuck everything. That's it.
Fuck everything. That's it. Simple.
I kind of agree with what Ross said, as much as Ramses is going to hate that. If that Canadian, the Canadian that's killing puppies and sacrificing them to his gods, if that fucker gets a title shot, then Dana White and I are going to have some serious words. So anybody but him, KG, my boy KG, Kevin Gastelum, should be up there somewhere. I give him one more fight, one more good dominance, and he'll be right up there in the title picture. If he's not already, I demand to see KG versus Johnny Hendricks.
Hell yeah. Final bit before we move on. Just really quickly, in 140 characters or less, who do you think, aside from Johnny Hendricks, is the best welterweight in the world? My vote goes to Hector Lombard. You also have guys we haven't even mentioned, Ben Askren, a ton of guys. Who do you all think is the number 2 in the world? Just blurt it out.
Ben Askren.
Kelvin
Absolutely.
Gastelum, future champ. Word on the street.
Chris?
Hung Lim.
Ninja and Chris?
I got KG, my boy KG.
I got Askren.
KG might not be the best right now, but he will be, and that I can guarantee you.
2 for Gastelum, 2 for Hung Lim. We can throw those 3 votes out. Let's be serious, people. 2 for Askren, I meant 2 for Gastelum and 2 for Lim. We'll throw those out. 2 for Askren and 1 for Hector Lombard. No one's saying Woodley or Lawler. Woodley or McDonald. Pardon me.
Hey, Jake,
Let's. Yeah. What's up?
real quick before we move on, one thing I want to say about Woodley: fantastic fighter, very scary dude to fight, but knocking out Josh Koscheck after he's been knocked out and broken, and then getting a gift, against Condit, I can't put that much stock into Woodley. I like the guy. He's turned a corner in Strikeforce. He was boring. He wrestle fucked everybody, and he came into the UFC and he started knocking people out. I can respect that. But that being said, knocking out fucking Josh Koscheck and then getting a injury against Condit, I can't. I'm not sold on the guy.
I actually, that injury. People say, "Oh, well, Woodley caused the injury." I don't necessarily look at that as much as I look at Woodley was dominating the fight up to that point. Condit probably would have needed to finish the fight in the late second round or third round to win it. But that fight against Marquardt definitely stands out to a lot of people, and he's going to get a stiff test in Robbie Lawler. Let's move on from the fights to the news. Let's play the damn music. That's right, that's the damn news music. We are going to break down the entire card of Bellator 119 at the end of the show. Briefly go through that main card, the Rampage fight, the Chandler fight. We were originally going to see the trilogy between Michael Chandler and Eddie Alvarez, but unfortunately Eddie Alvarez, he's out, injured, replaced by Will Brooks. They're still going to do the pay-per-view What do you think about the injury, and how does this affect how you see the card?
The injury sucks because we've all really wanted to see this third fight for a while, ever since the second fight, obviously. Michael Chandler and Eddie Alvarez are two of the best lightweights in the world. Maybe number 1 and 2. Maybe number 1A and 1B. They're fantastic. They're so good. They're so close in skill level. I wanted to see which one was better, who's just slightly better, who's going to take that third fight. It sucks it's delayed. It sucks it happens on a week notice that we find out it's canceled. But Will Brooks is a fantastic fighter, and he's tough, and he's awesome for stepping in on 7 days' notice. And Will Brooks versus Michael Chandler is an awesome fight also. I think Michael Chandler is better, but yeah. It really sucks because we wanted to see this. I think it's a big blow to the pay-per-view. I still think they can pull off a pay-per-view. And I'm still very, very interested in this card, and I still love the card, and I think it's going to be awesome.
You guys mind if I go next?
Yes,
All right, well,
I mind.
Yeah, as far as Bellator goes, I enjoy Bellator. I like it. I think Jimmy Smith, he's great as a commentator. They do put on some great fights, but kind of a big question to me as a hardcore fan over the last couple of years, why is Bellator trying to get in the pay-per-view business? It's a really big leap from being on Spike and having kind of mediocre numbers to trying to get into the pay-per-view business. I would understand if they were just rocking the numbers and people were showing up and showing their support, and they had a solid model with Spike and then jumped over to pay-per-view, but we haven't seen that. We haven't seen it from Bellator yet. So I think it's strange. If I had to guess, I'd say we'll see between 30,000 and 50,000 pay-per-view buys for this card. They lost Chandler, Alvarez. They had a replacement, and we got Tito Ortiz on there. We got Rampage. So the casual fan will show up and support this. But that being said, with all the UFC branding out there, there's no way this card does over 50,000 buys, in my opinion.
Kind of along those lines, I think it was Front Row Brian or Bloodstained Lane, I can't remember. Shout out to the both of them. And I'm sorry if it wasn't either of them that said this, but they brought up a good point. It seems like every time that Bellator tries to do a pay-per-view, karma kicks them in the ass, and it did this time for sure. This was going to be a great fight. Got the injury bug, got a hold of somebody, and now it's not going to be as good as it should be. And again, I kind of agree with which one of those guys said it, that maybe this is a sign for Bellator to maybe just not do the whole pay-per-view thing, like Chris was just saying. Maybe that's just not for you guys, or maybe not yet. You've got a lot more building. You've got a lot more stuff to do with the company before you hit that. And hopefully they at least get some decent numbers, because I think, in my personal opinion, Bellator is going to be shocked, and not in the good way.
Ramsey Sallin, any thoughts on the pay-per-view? I don't know if this open forum thing's working out.
Ramses is gone, by the way.
Ramses is gone.
Gonna be terrible. It's gonna do terrible numbers. It's gonna be a good pay-per-view. It's gonna be good fights. A lot of good names on there, but it's not gonna draw. It's Bellator. If it doesn't draw on free TV, it's not gonna draw on pay per TV. But shout out to Will Brooks. My coach trained with him for 6-8 weeks or whatever, a couple of weeks back, and I'm seeing him with the upset.
Yeah, and we sort of mentioned, the Viacom side of it, the karma, but I feel really bad for Eddie Alvarez. I mean, the guy was, ready to be going to the UFC after this fight's over. He's still got to fight a fight in Bellator, so he's not going to be going over to Zuffa as soon as a lot of us would have liked to have seen him go. We're trying to add Ramses back to the call. I don't know what happened with him, but let's move on.
Got a question.
Yeah.
Question. I just wanted to ask all you guys, why would you buy a Bellator pay-per-view? I've been asking that myself. Like, if you had to pony up the $30, $40, why would you actually pay the money? I wouldn't. Compared to the UFC, the product, yeah, they put on some really good fights, and I support them. But they've proven to treat fighters really bad. They're really shady with contracts. And even if you did know that, if you bought the pay-per-view, the production value would be really, really insignificant compared to the UFC. So I wanted to ask you guys about that. I wouldn't buy it.
I mean, personally, I was really, really stoked for Alvarez versus Chandler. The first fight was the fight of the year. The fight took place. The second fight, in my opinion, was the fight of the year last year. I was really, really stoked for the trilogy. But Alvarez backing out of the card, I mean, it exponentially devalues and
that proves you were going to buy it for one fight.
Yeah, basically.
Well, I'm going to jump in and say I kind of feel like that's a loaded question in the sense that the reason you buy the pay-per-view in the first place, the reason you buy any pay-per-view in the first place, because you want to watch fights. You want to watch a fight, you want to watch multiple fights, whatever the case may be. They put 5 fights on a pay-per-view, 6 fights on a pay-per-view. There's at least one fight you want to watch, and it's worth buying for you. A lot of people like just, no matter what, buying the fights because they enjoy it, and it makes them happy, and they think it's fun, and they love to watch fights. No matter who it is, it just, if there's a name on there that they recognize too, or if they're great fighters that they know, they enjoy it. Or if they just want to support a company, they buy it. In my case, I would buy the pay-per-view because one of my favorite fighters, Quentin Rampage Jackson, is fighting in the main event. So I am excited to see that fight. I am excited to see Michael Chandler fight. He's also another one of my favorite fighters, and he's fighting Will Brooks. I think Tito versus Alexander Shlemenko is fucking stupid. I think it's insane, and I cannot wait to see it because it's a freak show fight, and it makes you go, oh my God, this is so stupid. Shlemenko's going to kill... Wait, Tito weighs 40 pounds more than him. What the fuck? And then you're like, wow, this is kind of interesting. And Tito's a huge underdog. So this pay-per-view is actually very interesting. Alexander Volkov versus Blagoy Ivanov. The story of Blagoy Ivanov. First of all, Volkov's the former heavyweight champion, and Blagoy Ivanov got fucking stabbed, was in a coma for 3 months. The dude was dead. He was practically dead, and he's coming back, and he's fighting in the Bellator heavyweight tournament finals. And if he wins this fight, he's going to go on to fight Vitaly Minakov, who's a great prospect, and he's 14-0, and he's awesome, and he just beat Congo, who was in the UFC beating guys. He dropped Cain Velasquez. So these are the reasons I buy a Bellator pay-per-view. Plus, kicking off the main card is Michael Page. And it doesn't matter that he's fighting some bum because it's just a showcase fight. Michael Page is fucking entertaining as hell. He's like Anderson Silva. He's not Anderson Silva. He's like Anderson Silva. He has that style. He's very, very loose and fluid. And it's entertaining, and that's the point. You pay for a show to entertain you. And even though it's not the UFC, and even though it doesn't have the UFC brand or a WEC brand or even a Strikeforce brand, it's not a Floyd Mayweather fight, it's not a WWE pay-per-view, it's a Bellator show, but it has the entertainment value behind it, and that's why I would pay for it. And in their scenario, the reason they're putting it on still is because, A, they still have the names to do it, and Tito Ortiz and Quentin Rampage Jackson, and even Michael Chandler for the Bellator fans, and in some cases, King Mo Lawal. But they also have put a lot of money into this. They've tried this before, and they can't just cancel twice, and they can do it. And it can be done, and it's a good card, and people like me are going to buy it. And like I said, that's why people buy it.
You're a goddamn brilliant man.
Ross, you were gone from the MMA podcast for a long time, and I'm glad you're back. Your bastard father, he just texted me. His internet died. We'll get him back on as soon as he's able to get back on.
His internet died. Yeah, right. Texas. Continue.
We have a lot of fights that were announced we're going to break down, but first it's time to bring you the 7 solid seconds of sports. It used to be 10, but Ramsey's talked me into talking it down to 7. I'll try and do the best I can. NHL playoffs. Chicago moves on. New York. Montreal moves on. Game 7. Anaheim, LA in a couple days. NBA, Miami, and San Antonio move on. Indianapolis and Oklahoma City winning their finals. All right, moving on to the fight announcements. We actually had a few of those this week. The first one I would get to, Josh Thompson and Michael Johnson booked for the UFC on Fox July event that was made public by Mike Chiappetta 5 days ago. What do you guys think of the fight? Thompson will likely be a moderate favorite. You think Johnson has the skills to beat him?
I've got a simple answer for you, and that is the will to win. Josh Thompson has already said publicly that he's considering retirement. He's basically already given Michael Johnson the edge. If he steps in there with Michael Johnson on fight night, he's going to get his ass kicked. And I think it's the first time we're ever going to see Josh Thompson legitimately get mollywopped. I like Josh Thompson a lot. I like Michael Johnson, but Josh Thompson seems like he's not really too enthused to be in there in the octagon. And Michael Johnson is surging at the moment. So I have to say Michael Johnson wins by finish.
We're talking about the same Josh Thompson who beat Benson Henderson. Yeah, no chance. Michael Johnson, take your 3 losses or 2 losses in a row from back in the day and get the fuck to the back of the line. There's no way that Michael Johnson beats Josh Thompson.
Well, I'd like to disagree with Alan, and I'd like to say that he shouldn't. It's not that there's no way he can beat him. It's unlikely that he's going to beat him, but it's not that there's no way he can beat him. Michael Johnson is very good, and he's looked amazing in his last 3 fights. He's dispatched 3 guys who've been staples in the UFC lightweight division.
Gillard, T-Bow, and...
Those are 3 huge names in the division, and he's dispatched them all, and he's dominated them all. He's looked great. And he could beat pretty much anyone in the world on any given night. However, we've seen him struggle with wrestlers. We saw him struggle with Miles Jury. Miles Jury is 14-0 now. He's looked great.
You can't forget Madadi, the car thief.
Yeah, the purse thief. Reza Madadi beat him up too. He actually almost knocked Reza out with a head kick, but then Reza came back and submitted him with the Darce choke, I think it was. So
rear naked Darce.
Whatever. Whatever it was. Michael Johnson has had his ups and downs, but he's looked great. Josh Thompson lost, and I say that like that because he didn't really lose the fight. We all know he won that fight. He lost his last fight against Ben Henderson. That was a bullshit decision. He won that fight. Before that, he knocked out Nate Diaz brutally. And then before that, he lost to Gilbert Melendez. Now, I say lost like that because a lot of people thought that he won that fight. I personally thought that Gilbert won that fight at first. Going back, watching it, it could go either way. And before that, he destroyed KJ Noons. This is a guy who really is like top 3 in the world, top 2 in the world. I really wish he fought Pettis because that would have been a fucking awesome fight, and I think he could beat Pettis. He has a style to beat Pettis. I think Josh Thompson beats Michael Johnson because he's got the wrestling and he's just that much better and he's that much more elite. But anything can happen, and I think it's a great fight, and I hope it's at least... I think this should be the main event, but...
Thompson gets finished by Johnson.
I don't understand how you... Well, hold on. To say that Thompson gets finished by Johnson, I don't see how there's a basis of that because Michael Johnson has beaten Joe Lozon, Gleison Tebow, and Melvin Guillard. Now, Melvin Guillard was just cut. Gleison Tebow somehow was re-signed after losing that fight, which is a little weird. He got like a 4-fight deal after getting knocked out by Michael Johnson, which was odd. And Joe Lozon,
you need to have rats.
Yeah, but you're not going to cut Tebow because he has a winning record in the lightweight division.
No,
he's been around for like 23 fights. You can't cut that guy.
The point is, Michael Johnson beat 3 guys who were big names and are big names, but they're not top 10 in the division. They're not top 15 in the division. Meanwhile, Josh Thompson is basically beating the former champion Ben Henderson, who beat everyone else except Anthony Pettis, is knocking out and destroying Nate Diaz, who's knocking out other guys who are top 10 in the division and beating other guys who are top 10 in the division, like Jim Miller. And then you got him contending with guys like Gilbert Melendez and basically beating him. And he's beaten Pat Healy, and he's beaten Gil before. I mean,
in the words of the great Brendan Schaub, styles make fights. I think Michael Johnson is a terrible stylistic matchup.
How so?
For Josh Thompson, I think he just has that it factor. I think Matt Hughes lost to Dennis Hallman twice by armbar.
I'd like to say for the record that it factor is not a style.
I think Michael Johnson.
Yes, it is wrestling.
I don't like Michael Johnson very much. I'm not a huge fan of his.
You're racist.
I'm not hanging on his nuts. I just think he has the style to be.
I think it's that Michael Johnson has the bigger package,
but what are you talking about? Like striking, wrestling?
It's how dynamic he is. Josh Thompson is a dynamic fighter. He's a guy who's always changing up. When he sees an opening and an opportunity, he takes it. And I think Michael Johnson is better at that than Josh Thompson is.
We will definitely
We
see.
have not heard from me yet. Let me bring to you the voice of reason, a side we can all understand. Let me use my beautiful and artistic voice.
Succulent.
Succulent is a very good word. To enlighten everybody. I'm going to take a very different path. It might not have happened on this show yet, so there's a first for everything. I'm going to agree with every one of you. And here is why. Personally, I don't think Michael Johnson has the tools to win that fight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure of anybody in that division that could beat Josh Thompson at this point. If he stays on his roll, keeps going, he might very well become the champion, which a lot of people think he is. However, it's going to be about heart. That's the big key of this whole combat sport thing is heart. If Josh Thompson shows up and he doesn't want to be there, his heart's not in it, there is no way he can win.
Bada bing, bada boom.
And that's, to quote Ramses, that's the bottom line. Josh Thompson might be one of the greatest in the division, but
I got one thing to say about that.
I wouldn't question his heart, because every fight he shows up with a ton of heart. I wouldn't, say that there's...
He's hinting retirement. That's the point.
If he's talking about retirement, he's thinking about other things.
He's frustrated because he got fucked over.
Hold on. He's hinting retirement in the heat of the moment, the day after he fights, when he gets screwed over in a completely preposterous decision.
Not even true. He said the same exact thing on the MMA Hour. I think 2 or 3 days afterwards. Nope. Not
2
true.
or 3 days afterwards after the fight.
Yeah, that's still very close to the
screwed
fight.
over just a few days before. He's
Wait,
not
so 2
in
or
the
3
right
days
state of
isn't
mind.
enough time for you guys to think
No,
about
it's not.
No,
it's still
actually,
very
not.
recent.
It's not.
Yeah, it's still
not.
very recent to
Hey,
the
I
fight.
just had some shit happen to me a couple weeks ago. That was a couple weeks ago, and I'm still thinking about it, and it's still sticking.
I will bow forward. Okay, I'm sorry. I did.
Let's ask
Erick
Silva how Hart wins you fights.
Listen, though, I just, from experience, literally a few hours ago when I went to Gracie Jiu Jitsu, I have a lot of shit going on in my mind. I've had a lot of things happen in a couple of days, but we're not here to talk about that. What we are here to talk about is if I walked in that Gracie Jiu Jitsu school like I have before with something on my mind, you're going to get fucking mauled. And that's a fact. You need 100% focus, and this is just training at an academy. This isn't fighting on a giant stage with millions of people watching. You have to be 100% focused to go in there. You have to be 100% focused to do anything. If your mind is, if any piece, any little sliver of your mind is not on getting that victory, you will not get that victory.
Dropping truth bombs from the ninja. People getting a little salty, so we're gonna move on. A light heavyweight match. Anthony Johnson looked impressive as shit at UFC 172, beating Phil Davis, and he's now gonna fight Little Nog. UFC on Fox San Jose. The over/under on amount of days it's gonna take Little Nog to back out of the fight is 10.5. But seriously though, what do you think of this fight? Not many people are gonna be picking Little Nog. We talk about fluke wins, and I hate to use the word fluke in any fight because if you win a fight, especially a decision, it's not a fluke. But Little Nog's win over Rashad Evans is definitely a head scratcher. I mean, the Rashad Evans that fought Little Nog and the Rashad Evans that beat Sonnen are two completely different fighters. Evans is at a hell of a 205er. Little Nog, looking for that top opponent, backed out of a couple fights, but it looks like, at least tentatively, UFC on Fox San Jose. I think in July we're going to see Rumble versus Little Nog. Do you all think the fight will happen? And if it does Little Nog even have a chance against Rumble?
Look, I like Little Nog. he's exciting. I like his instructionals. I watched a couple videos he put out there with his big brother, Big Nog. They're fantastic martial artists. The problem is they stayed too long in the game, and we've seen it time and time again. Chuck Liddell, Forrest Griffin, dudes getting mollywopped, but they can't actually handle it. Little Nog pulls out of more fights than I think Tito pulls out of Jenna. And, that may not be a good joke, but Little Nog really fucking sucks. He's not... Where's a foghorn? That was garbage. Little Nog sucks. There's no way. If Little Nog steps in the cage with Anthony Johnson, he will die. I swear to God, he'll die. He might get a couple nice underhooks and try and take him down, and Johnson sprawls and lights him up. That's it. I'm saying 2 rounds. I think it would take 2 rounds for Anthony Johnson to light up Little Nog. What do you guys got?
Well, first of all, I just want to preface this by saying this is an absolute waste of time. This fight is not going to happen. Little Nog is going to pull out of this fight because he does not fight. He will never fight again. At least not someone like Anthony Johnson. Anthony Johnson, if they do fight, some miracle that this fight actually goes down, Anthony Johnson is actually going to kill Antonio Rogerio Nogueira. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be the worst beating you have ever seen inside the octagon. When we look at it, Little Nog has fought Rashad Evans, Tito, Phil Davis, Ryan Bader, and Jason Brills in his last 5 fights. With that 5th one that I mentioned being in 2010. I mean, the dude hasn't fought in ages. His last fight was February of 2013. And he fought Rashad in a fluke. It was a fluke win. I mean, Rashad had just watched multiple teammates lose that night. He was in a bad way. He had just watched, literally right before he went out there, his teammate, Alistair Overeem get knocked out brutally by Bigfoot Silva. So his head just wasn't in that fight. That was a fluke. Tito sucks. He got beat by Phil Davis, who really isn't that great. He got beat by Ryan Bader, who's pretty good, but not that great right now either. He lost to Jason Brills, but somehow got the decision. Big Nog sucks too now, but Little Nog really does suck, and he's not going to fight this fight. Anthony Johnson would knock him out in the first round in 2 minutes or less.
Unfortunately, from the Ninja, my artistic and sultry voice is pretty much going to be a repeat of the last segment that we just had. Because I think it's no secret to everybody listening and to everybody on here. I think the Nogs, the Nogueira brothers, are just done fighting. I think it's time for both of them to hang it up. So, having that said, to be like a broken record, which little Nog is going to show up again? If he wants to fight, I think we'd have a good fight. If he wants to fight, you're talking about, one of the greatest jiu-jitsu guys. He's a jiu-jitsu master. And I think that could be a key to beating Rumble. So, however, it all depends if this guy wants to fight or not. And like Ross said, if they actually get to the pay-per-view, hopefully he'll actually want the victory. Hopefully he'll actually want it. But honestly, I kind of bring it to everybody's attention. Really, what is Little Nog fighting for? If you're not fighting for something, then you have no business fighting. Anthony Rumble Johnson has a very good career. He may or may not have a title shot in his future. Little Nog, he's not fighting for anything. Little Nog, he's not going to want to be champion. He's not going to have 5 or 6 fights to get up to a title shot. It's just not going to happen. So, if you fight for, like I said, if you don't have anything to fight for, you have no business fighting.
Hell yeah. Alan, looks like Chris dropped off the call. He got murdered. That makes 2 of our guest panelists murdered. Shit's getting kind of sketchy around here. Go ahead, though, Alan.
Are you asking me to comment on something that's never going to take place? Because
Yes.
I won't waste my breath. Boom.
Waste your breath. Waste it. Alan refuses to waste his damn breath. We have a couple more fights to talk about. Stefan
I think
Struve.
Kansas came back on.
I tried to call him and he didn't answer. Stefan Struve going to be fighting Matt Mitrione at UFC 175. Actually, it was a interesting war of words. I haven't seen this one yet. Struve says Mitrione was asking him how he was doing, and then asked the UFC directly for a fight, and it kind of pissed Struve off because Struve's thinking really you're gonna want to fight me because I'm weak? Seriously, man. So a little bit of an interesting dynamic there, but what do you all think of the fight Struve Mitrione? I assume Struve will be the favorite in his return fight.
Struve, with the length, I think he's going to show Meathead a very different look that that Meathead's never seen before. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Matt Mitrione's fought anybody, obviously, with the size and reach advantage like Stefan Struve does. So I'm kind of curious to see how he's going to deal with that. Matt Mitrione's he's a really good inside fighter. He likes to get inside, kind of rough you up a bit, and so I'm kind of anxious to see what each one of these guys' game plan is. I personally never thought Matt Mitrione would even make it in the UFC. Didn't like him on The Ultimate Fighter. Didn't like him a lot on The Ultimate Fighter, to be honest with you. And then he's surprised me ever since. So if he can puzzle together some game plan to get around that reach, which he definitely does have the potential in the hands to do that, he might be able to unravel Stefan Struve in this one.
Well, but first of all, Stefan Struve obviously is going to have a significant size advantage and a significant reach advantage in this fight. But there's one thing we've learned from previous Stefan Struve fights. It's he does not use his reach properly. He does not use his size properly. Now, in the last couple of fights, he's starting to kind of put it together a little bit. He had a tough fight against Mark Hunt, and he was knocked out, and then he went away for a while. This is not an easy first fight back. This is actually a very difficult first fight back because he's fighting someone with the ability to put him to sleep with one punch, and someone who's got good takedown defense, and someone who's going to brawl with him. And who knows how Stefan's going to feel coming off of having his jaw completely obliterated. If he's going to be tentative. And Ninja, we'll go back to what you said before about the heart stuff. I mean, his heart's got to be in it, but his mind's got to be in it. He's got to be mentally there. If he's not mentally there, if he's not mentally prepared to go in there and get hit after getting his jaw cracked in half and fractured by Mark Hunt and the tooth coming out and everything, I mean, it's going to be a bad night for him. So it's a very, very interesting fight. I'm interested to see what the odds are because Struve normally would probably be the favorite, but coming off of the layoff that he's had and what happened in the last fight, that plays a huge factor. Matt Mitrione in his last fight looked awesome, knocking out Sean Jordan with like a second left in the round. So this is a very interesting fight. I think if Stefan Struve comes out looking like he did before he fought Mark Hunt, and even kind of in the Mark Hunt fight with just his heart and his resilience, and he doesn't have any mental issues with the fractured jaw and the long layoff and the heart problems and everything like that, then I think Stefan Struve should win this fight. But I'm not going to pick a winner.
I'll pipe in and kind of add to that. Ross makes a very good point. Like I was saying just a second ago, who can come up with the game plan? Having heard what Ross said, I mean, that could be very much the game plan of Matt Mitrione. That can decide this fight is that first punch. When that first punch lands on that jaw, it depends, how cleanly it lands and how hard it is, because Matt Mitrione, as much as I really don't care for the guy, he can throw bombs, and we very well might see Stefan Struve take that punch to that jaw, and that just sucks all his heart and willingness to fight right there.
Alan, did you have anything to add in?
Like these guys, or mainly Ross, emphasized that it's going to be interesting to see how Stefan Struve comes back from the injury. Like you said, the events, what took place in the last fight. But if you just, take both fighters based on, what they've done in the past since they've been in the UFC, I think that Matt Mitrione has evolved a lot, but I still don't think that he has as many tools to deal with Stefan Struve in the range and the ground game. And, I think if Stefan Struve gets backed up against the fence or something like that, he's going to pull guard and drag Mitrione down. And, I don't know if Mitrione's ever dealt with a 7-foot tall guy that large that can put you in a fucking triangle in about 2 seconds. So like everybody said earlier, styles make fights, and this is like a super interesting stylistic matchup. It's really hard to pick one way or the other. But I think both guys they're similar, like as far as like the heavyweight division, like they're in the same range, like that number, 15 to number 10 range. But I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. Like Ross said, you can't really pick a winner because there's too many variables going into this fight. But I definitely think it's going to be a very good fight. Let's leave it at that.
Another fight, which honestly I don't think many of us are going to have a big opinion on it, because both of these girls aren't really that close to being in the limelight. But I want to hear what Ross has got to say, because Ross and I actually were talking about MMA prospects earlier, and Ross mentioned both of these women as women's bantamweights to keep an eye on. Sarah Moraes and Alexis Dufresne. What do you think about this fight, and what do you think about both of these fighters, Ross?
Yeah, I did mention these two girls. Alexis Dufresne, I think that's how you pronounce it. I consider her the number 2 women's bantamweight, not in the top 15 to look out for right now. This girl is 5-0, all finishes in the first round, all under 3 minutes. She's a great grappler, great jiu-jitsu practitioner, and she's got some damn good striking, and she's got good striking in top position too. Good jiu-jitsu with strikes. So like combat jiu-jitsu kind of. Her last 3 wins are all TKOs in the first round. Before that, she had 2 submissions in the first round to start her pro career. She's a fantastic fighter. She's very young, and she's getting better and better. So she's someone who's going to contend against Ronda Rousey one day. She's very good, if Ronda's still around. Sarah Moraes is number 4 on my list. She's great, but she's not on, in my opinion, Dufresne's level. So I'm going with Dufresne for sure.
Word, and I'm looking through the news. Unless, one more fight I wanted you to break down, Ross. Huto and Assange versus Derek Lewis at Tough 19. We're going to be there in Vegas. Like I said before, if you plan on going to some fights soon, go to Vegas July 4th weekend. We'll have a couple cold beer.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Derek Lewis obviously knocked out Jack May in his last fight. Jack May is kind of a kickboxer, and Jack May kind of gave Derek Lewis a bit of problems, only because Jack May is huge. Jack May is like 6'7" or 6'8", so he's a big guy, and Derek Lewis is only about 6'2", 6'3". But Derek Lewis is a knockout machine, and basically his last 6 or 7 fights have all ended in TKOs or knockouts, all wins. So the dude's only got 2 losses in his career. He's never been knocked out. Both of them were decision losses, I think, to like Sean Jordan and Tony Johnson. But he's on a big winning streak, and he's one of the guys I said to look out for. He's knocked out Jared Rosholt, who's on a run in the UFC. So he's a guy to look out for. Guto Innocente is someone who's kind of had his debut delayed for a very long time because the guy has not fought since Strikeforce, and not even Strikeforce's last card. I'm talking like the Rockhold card where he fought Keith Jardine January in 2012. He hasn't fought since then. So it's been over 2 years since the guy's fought, but he's finally getting back in the octagon in July. His debut in the octagon, actually. This guy's a very, very, very good kickboxer, and he's transitioning. He's not transitioning now to MMA. He's been fighting MMA for a while, but this is his first fight in the UFC. He's had like 1 Strikeforce fight. Now he's in the UFC. The heavyweight division is kind of shallow, and this is a guy who can make waves in the division, not really dominated by wrestlers. A lot of strikers in the division, and when you throw in a kickboxer like Guto Innocente, it kind of changes things up a bit. It mixes things up. So I cannot wait to see this fight. I cannot wait to see Guto Inocente's debut. And I think Guto Inocente walks away with the victory because this is ultimately going to be a stand-up fight. Derek Lewis is going to want to try and knock him out, and Guto Inocente is going to want to try and knock him out. And we all know what's going to happen when you go a brawler against a kickboxer. We all know.
Unanimous decision.
Knockout. Guto Inocente.
Out. Deal with it, people. Final topic before we break down Bellator 120. Sorry about calling it 119 before. Final topic is going to be Boss Rutan calling Jones's techniques dirty against Glover, Teixeira, and the eye pokes. Otherwise, sort of leading on that he believes that the eye pokes are indeed on purpose. I hate to beat a dead horse here, but do you agree with Rutan's comments?
Boss Rutan is a legend, and if anybody in the entire world knows dirty-handed tactics, it's going to be Boss Rutan. In my mind, there was no doubt that those eye pokes were intentional. I mean, you cannot palm a guy's face in an actual fight without knowing that that's going to happen. I mean, come on. You know, and it's just, I mean, there's no need for what he was doing. I understand keeping the range, but you can do that with a closed hand just as easy as you can do it with an open hand. So basically, he was trying to palm his face. If Boss Rutan, like I said, the king of dirty-handed tactics, the king of bar fights, I've watched all his videos on, how to survive street fights and stuff. If anybody's going to know what dirty tactics are, it's Boss Rutan, and I completely agree with him 100%. Fuck you, John Jones.
Of course, John Jones' tactics are dirty, and the fact that we have to go through this yet again is horrible. I really have nothing else to say, honestly. It's such a dead issue.
I like to bash John Jones every chance I get, Ross.
I know, but to give the guy publicity when the guy doesn't even deserve it, it's preposterous. The guy had his moment. His 15 minutes are up. Let's wait until his next fight. Woohoo. Let's move on. TJ Dillashaw, Hannibal.
Fuck you, John Jones.
He is going to have a few stiff tests. Even if he beats Gustafsson, he's got Cormier. Even if he makes it past Cormier, he would need to fight Rumble Johnson. He definitely is a pound for pound king, but I would say if you asked most fans if they thought he would be able to make it through that 3-man gauntlet, it's gonna be tough. I mean, Gus gave him a run for his fucking money. Glover, I mean, you definitely got to give Jones credit for a beautiful shoulder crank, but Glover's knockout power was only there for half a round until Jones pretty much made his right arm not usable anymore. This is the part of the podcast where we were going to have Ramses tell a story about an estranged lover. We were pumping it up on Twitter, and I think I said Lover there, almost like Glover. That was fucking weird. But anyway, people, Ramses isn't here, so we're going to get straight to Bellator 120, Rampage versus King Mo.
Wait, Jake.
Yes, Ross.
You see, you promoted something for the people. You promoted a service, you advertised a service, you advertised something that was going to happen, and instead you are not delivering it to the people. Well, if that's the case, is that the case right now?
I'll have to give them their non-existent money back.
Or you have to replace it with something of equal or greater value. And let me tell you something, Jake. Something of greater value, instead of Ramses telling a story, is the best Jew in the business telling a little story about Ramses. You see, Ramses revealed the other day, right before I beat his ass and made him my bitch, that I am his bastard son. And I confirmed it. It is true. And I've known it for a while because he's been in my life for a little while. He was there at the beginning, and he's been there recently. But you see, if you ask him, he won't tell you that because he's been so fucked up on pain medication, heroin, cocaine,
My God.
vodka, beer, whiskey, wine,
More beer.
more wine, every single thing in the book. Cocaine, Molly, crack, you name it, he's done it. And
And he did it in front of you, his own bastard son.
he forgot about me, Jake. And you see, he was out of my life for 15 years. He was there for the beginning, but he hasn't been there for the middle. He's back here at the end, and I'll never forgive him for that. And that is why I cut out his internet tonight. Because you see, I can't stand to hear his voice anymore. That's why I bought the word on the street, Jake. That's why I have a controlling stake, because I can't stand to hear the voice of Ramses anymore. And I will see to it that Ramses doesn't exist soon enough.
The word on the street, ladies and gentlemen, every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Pacific, we always got Coach Jamie Huey on. You can listen to how this shit is going to play out. Just last Tuesday, we thought Ross had killed himself in a game of Russian roulette. It turns out he killed Yao in coma, who is now in a coma. Yao gave him the damn gun. Shit's getting sad over on the Word on the Street podcast, but we're going to try and keep it MMA-centric here. Bellator 120.
Before we move on to that, in honor of the missing Ramses, who is our dear friend, may I do the fight tip of the week?
You know what, Ninja? Yeah. Let's get a Ninja fight tip. Fuck it, ladies and gentlemen. Ninja, take it away.
The Ninja fight tip of the week, and this is actually real, people. What I want you to do as the Ninja fight tip of the week, something I learned to do when I was very, very young, and that is to kick somebody right square in the frickin' kneecap. I bet you thought I was going to say nuts, but no, the kneecap. I don't know if any of you, probably Alan, God bless Alan, have ever kicked in a door before. That is the most exhilarating and awesome feeling in the entire world, is just putting your foot through somebody's front door, rushing in and doing that. And that's the exact same thing I want you to do to somebody's kneecap. And trust me, it only takes maybe one or two. You put your foot, you bring your knee high up to your chest, like you're stomping down on that knee, and you put your foot through it. Don't try fancy leg kicks like Anderson Silva that are gonna just break your shins. Nope, just the bottom of your foot through somebody's kneecap. I want it to come out the other side. That's your fight tip of the week. That's gonna save your life. Women, men, practice it, live it, learn it, love it. That's my fight tip of the week. The Ninja fight tip. Thank you.
Thank you, Ninja. God bless you. Let's get straight to it. Actually, that reminds me. I wanted to bring up. Check our Twitter. Check the YouTube thing. Check out the Fund Anything we set up for the Ninja. Watch the damn video and get the story. Renzo Gracie changed our buddy's life. And you know what? Our buddy is changing his last name to Gracie, and I'm not gonna lie. A couple people tweeted us saying, "Oh, that's ridiculous." You know what else is crazy? I said the same thing on the Word on the Street podcast. It's crazy. We all have little phones in our hand that we can look up any fact on the fucking world. A lot of this shit in our life is a little ridiculous, but you know what? Renzo Gracie gave our buddy Ninja a reason to live, and just, I mean, he is so full of life, going to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He wants to dedicate his life to being a coach, run a gym. This man, Renzo Gracie, one of the best people in the mixed martial arts world, and it means a lot to Ninja. He's going through a hard time. We all go through hard times. So check out the Fund Anything for our buddy, the Ninja. Let's keep rolling along. The last bit of MMA news we have to speak on tonight. Bellator 120. It's going to be this Saturday, May 17th, Bellator's first pay-per-view. People didn't know whether they were going to keep it a pay-per-view once Eddie Alvarez hopped off, but it's still a pay-per-view headlined by King Mo and Quentin Rampage Jackson. We're not going to break down those fights yet. Instead, we're going to start with the prelims. On Spike.com, we're going to see, honestly, 5 fights. I'm not going to break them down one by one because they aren't really names a lot of people are going to recognize. The 4 fights on Spike TV, you will recognize a lot of these names. Marcin Held is going to be taking on Nate Jolly at lightweight. Mike Richmond taking on Gody Yamaguchi at featherweight. I know I just murdered his name. Shambalat Shambalaev is going to be fighting Fabricio Guerrero. That's another featherweight fight. I think I got those names right. And former UFC heavyweight Chit Congo taking on Eric Smith. Any of those fights stand out. I'll actually go ahead and add in Michael Page and Ricky Rainey, Alexander Volkov, and Blagoy Ivanov, the first 2 fights on the pay-per-view. I cannot wait to see Michael Venom Page. That guy is one of my favorite fighters. Whether or not he has the skill to eventually, be a UFC champ, yet to be seen. But damn, is he exciting as fuck.
The only thing that stands out, I've been a big fan of his. Shit Congo.
Are you?
What?
Please continue. Go ahead.
I've been big fan of Shit Congo. It's the only fight that I'm interested in. I wish him well. I hope he does good. He's had some pretty good knockouts, some pretty good stuff in the past that's been very entertaining, because this fight, like we've heard before, this whole card's all about entertainment, so I hope he can deliver. If anybody else has anything to say, now would be the time, because I am done talking.
Well, before I was so rudely interrupted by some people, I was about to get to the point where I was going to talk about this Bellator card. The preliminary card on Spike, and I guess we're talking about how many fights into the main card? Are we talking
First
about the
2, Venom Page and the Volkov fight.
Let me start. I'm going to go fight by fight because I really like this card. Marcin Held versus Nate Jolly. This fight was booked basically just like 2 days ago. Short notice because of all the shit that's been changed up. Nate Jolly was supposed to fight Will Brooks. Marcin Held was supposed to fight Patricky Pitbull. Patricky Pitbull suffered a broken hand, or an injured hand, actually, not a broken hand in training. He's out of the fight. So he wasn't. They took Marcin Held off the card, but they knew that Eddie was having problems, so they kind of said, hold up, there might be a shakeup. He might be back in somewhere on this card. Now he's fighting Nate Jolly. I don't think it's a tournament final or anything, but it's at least a fight. I think Marcin Held wins this fight. Marcin Held is still a very, 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 very good prospect. He's a young guy, and he's a very good grappler. Game is top level. These Polish guys are really stepping the game up. He's only like 21 years old, so big things in his future. I think he wins this fight. Mike Richmond and Gody Yamauchi. You were trying to pronounce that, Jake?
Yeah, I think I came close.
Yeah, he's Japanese and Brazilian. It's a very cool. It's kind of like Machida, only he's more like Japanese than Machida. It's really, really cool. This guy, combined record, he's 7-0 as an amateur, and he's 16-2 as a pro. He lost his last fight, and he lost a fight like a couple years ago, and he was on like a 10-fight winning streak before losing to Will Martinez at 110. I was at that card. I saw the fight live. but still, Goity's a very good fighter. Yamauchi, I think he's very young too. He's only like 20 years old, so he's got so much time to improve. I think Mike Richmond's also another guy that people don't really talk about enough, who's a very good fighter. He lost to Des Green, but who did he beat before that? I can't remember who he beat. He got a finish before that fight. I think Yamauchi will win that fight, but another one to look out for. Shabalat Shamalayev and Fabricio Guerrero, whatever his name is, the Brazilian dude. Wow. This is an awesome fight. This was added to the card on short notice. I'm taking up a lot of time, and I'm really running out of steam here, but I just want to say these featherweight fights are fucking awesome, and Bellator has a really good featherweight division. Shabalat Shamalayev lost to Packer in his last fight, but the dude is a fucking killer on his feet. He's a striking machine. He's got a lot of power. Watch out for him. That's going to be a good fight. Congo against Eric Smith. Eric Smith is actually a nice up-and-comer, but it's Czech Congo. Michael Venom Page. Do I need to even say anything? The guy's like Anderson Silva 2.0. I can't wait for that. His return to the cage, it's been over a year. Volkov and Ivanov. I mean, I said it before. Volkov's the former champion. He lost the belt to Vitaly Minikov, who's one of the best prospects in MMA right now. Blagoy Ivanov, the dude was stabbed in a coma, nearly died, came back, and is now in the Bellator heavyweight tournament finals. What more could you ask for? That is just fucking awesome. That's a great story that should be headlining on CNN and NBC. People should be talking about that, not stupid shit like Tito Ortiz's fucking shit being stolen and posted on. Who gives a shit about that? We should be talking about how a guy was stabbed, dead, and is back in the fucking tournament finals. That's what we should be talking about. I think this is awesome.
Fucking excellent point, man. Alan, we haven't heard from you yet.
Buy it with your money.
Yo, that shit was simple, to the point. Let's get to breaking down the top 3 fights. Ross, you touched on it earlier, and you pretty much summed it up perfectly in a single sentence. Tito against Shlemenko. You think, yeah, fucking Tito's gonna get buried, but then you realize, oh, this fight's at 205. Tito is way bigger than this motherfucker. What? What goes on here? Who you got? Is Tito gonna be able to use his wrestling to get a win?
All right. This is a freak show fight. This is a fight you look at and you go, what the fuck? What? Huh? Wait, first of all, Tito Ortiz is still... Yo, dude, come here. Tito Ortiz is still fighting. What? Tito Ortiz? Yeah, Tito Ortiz is still fighting. I thought he really... Isn't he dead? No, he's not dead. Oh, shit. Who's he? Wow, this Russian dude's good. Yeah, it's one of those fights. It's those fights you call your friends over to the computer when you see the announcement and you go, what the fuck is it? He's fighting... Tito Ortiz... What? Alexander Shlemenko in his last 30 fights is 28-2. 28-2. That's fucking
Soak that
incredible.
In, people. Yeah.
That's think about that for a second. That's really, really, really incredible. And a lot of those are finishes. He's a knockout machine. And he's got a lot of submissions too. This is a crafty, crafty Russian. The dude has 50 wins in his career. 50 wins and under 10 losses. He's got 7 losses. To go 50-7 is an incredible feat. Something that not many people do. If you do that, you are elite, and that is exactly what Alexander Shlemenko is. That being said, Alexander Shlemenko is about 5'10", and weighs about 185 pounds, 190 pounds. Tito Ortiz is about 6'3", 6'4", and walks around at about 230 pounds. When Tito Ortiz steps into the cage, first of all, this fight's going to be with a weight limit of 205 pounds, but when Tito Ortiz steps in the cage, he's going to weigh 220 pounds at least. Alexander Shlemenko maybe will weigh 205 pounds or 200 pounds. There's going to be a huge size advantage here. And there's one style that Alexander Shlemenko will struggle with, and that is a wrestler. That being said, he still will beat wrestlers, and he's still a gritty motherfucker, and he's still very hard to beat. But we're talking about a guy who could theoretically make the 155-pound weight limit versus a guy who could fight in a weight class where he's fighting 265-pound to 275-pound men. That's a huge difference. We're talking about 265 pounds area and 150. That's 110 pounds we're talking about here. Tito Ortiz, who could fight at heavyweight, is fighting Alexander Shlemenko, who's fighting at lightweight. This is a freak show fight. This is like an open weight fight. This is something that Pride would put on in a freak show where the Yakuza is involved and there's a predetermined winner. Now, obviously, there's no predetermined winner. My stupid father would tell you so, but there's no predetermined winner. Your first instinct is, I'm betting Alexander Shlemenko. Alexander Shlemenko is 50-7. He's 28-2 in his last 30. He's a fucking killer. He's the Bellator middleweight champion. Of course he's going to kill Tito because Tito sucks. He hasn't won a fight since he beat Bader, and before that, his last win was Ken Shamrock, and he hasn't done shit in years. His last good win was like 10 years ago. But the fact of the matter is, Tito weighs basically 30 pounds more, 40 pounds more. And if Tito gets on top of him and just puts all of that weight on him and just punches him, it's not going to be a good night for Alexander Shlemenko. I'm going to pick Shlemenko because Tito Ortiz sucks, and I think Alexander Shlemenko could run around him, kind of like fighting Godzilla, and just knock him out. Or hit him with body punches and take him out that way, kind of chop his legs down. But if Tito gets that takedown, Alexander Shlemenko is going to be embarrassed, and Bellator is going to be embarrassed, and it's going to be a very weird night because Tito Ortiz is going to somehow walk away with the victory against Alexander Shlemenko, the Bellator champion.
Beautifully put, man.
Well, if anybody can sell a frickin' fight, it must be Ross, the best you in the business, Finkelstein, because actually now I'm kind of interested in this fight, to be honest with you. I know Alexander Shlemenko. I've watched him fight many times. Having heard what Ross said, this actually piques my interest a little bit. I was aware of the size advantage, but listening to him kind of got me thinking. Tito's been hit very hard in his career. Sometimes he went down, sometimes he didn't. But, it kind of remains to be seen. However, in the traditional martial arts, everybody's taught me that size doesn't matter. However, when you're in a cage, there has to be a point where it does. And I think that point is wrestling. In jiu-jitsu, size doesn't matter. I can tell you that firsthand. It's better to be stronger, obviously. But I don't think Alexander Shlemenko has that jiu-jitsu pedigree. So, and if he did, it's Tito Ortiz. I mean, this guy was thought to be one of the best wrestlers in the UFC, of all time. You cannot take away Tito's wrestling pedigree. And I'm going to agree with Ross and say it comes down to if it remains standing or if Tito gets that takedown. And that weight difference and that size difference for wrestling, not having that jiu-jitsu pedigree, Tito just might do what Tito does best, and that's put you on your back and punch your face into the mat.
Definitely, I agree with you guys, man. I've watched Shlemenko, kind of have some tough matchups. Like his, didn't he fight Brett Cooper recently?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the fight that I was watching. He was supposed to be super dominant and whatever, but Brett Cooper was fucking game and put up a pretty decent fight, and it eventually got outclassed. But if you want to put Shlemenko in there against another 185 or Brett Cooper, and they have a close fight, I know Tito sucks,
But what the fuck do you think is going to happen when you put him in there with Tito? I mean, I think Tito's probably going to destroy him. He's probably going to take him down. The only way I see Shlemenko winning is with like his spinning back fist punch that he always fucking throws, and some like wild striking where he maybe catches Tito and breaks him mentally, because you know we all know that Tito will tap the strikes. But it is a very interesting fight. It's going to be super fun to watch. Anybody who denies that it's going to be a fun fight to watch is fucking stupid and just doesn't like watching fun fights. It's basically like a Matt Brown, Erick Silva type deal where, you know, one guy's got all the talent in the world and the other guy's just, you know, tough and gritty. And, you know, we're just going to get the viewing pleasure of watching it, unless it's just a stinker and Tito Ortiz takes him down immediately and smothers him for 3 rounds, and it's super boring, and I could end up being wrong.
Showing both sides of the damn coin. We'll move to the co-main event. We got Michael Chandler taking on Will Brooks. Really unfortunate that Alvarez dropped out of the fight with Chandler and what's really turned into one of the best MMA rivalries. But Will Brooks, he's no fucking slouch, man. 13-1. His only loss to Saad Awad, a fight he got revenge for at Bellator 105. The Bellator Season 9 lightweight tournament champion. Will Brooks, a lot of people are saying he is the real deal, and he has a good chance to beat Michael Chandler, who also only has 1 loss on his record. It was his last loss, a split decision loss to Eddie Alvarez. Ross went to go take a piss. So Ninja Allen, what do y'all lead it out? One of you guys lead it out. What do you all think about the fight? Who wins?
Alan, you can go ahead on this one.
After watching Will Brooks' last couple of fights, I mean, his wrestling it's really on another level. I think that would be like where his go-to, you know, game plan would end up being. The guy, you know, he's a thick 155er. As far as like the striking area, I mean, he's got decent stand-up. It's not great, but I don't know if he. Michael Chandler's like developed into this like, you know, hybrid fighter. It's where like he's a, you know, great wrestler, but I mean he can throw from any angle. He can, you know, jive, like he can move. I mean he looks like a boxer when he's in there throwing punches. And you know what happens whenever 2 wrestlers end up in the cage that are really good? They cancel each other out, and it turns into a striking battle. And unfortunately, I don't see Brooks winning this fight. I would like him to win this fight. He have the pleasure of training with you know, my coach who trained with him and said that he's a beast in the gym, and I don't doubt him. So, you know, I'm going to be rooting for Will Brooks, but I don't see him winning this fight. I think Michael Chandler's way too complete of a fighter. I think I would love to see Michael Chandler versus, you know, Pettis or Thompson or anything like that. I think he's one of the best fighters in the world, and especially at 155.
Go for it, Ross.
All right. First thing I'm going to ask everyone right now is to break out your checkbook, because after I say this, you're going to start writing that check to Bellator. This fight we're getting on short notice between Michael Chandler and Will Brooks is a fight that we may very well have where we were possibly going to get in the future. If Michael Chandler beat Eddie Alvarez, he would have faced Dave Jensen and Will Brooks. Will Brooks was supposed to fight Nate Jolly, but on 7 days' notice, he is stepping up and he is replacing Eddie Alvarez, and he is fighting Michael Chandler. Will Brooks is fantastic. Will Brooks is one of the best lightweight prospects in the world, and at this point, you could take out the word prospect because he's becoming one of the best lightweights in the world, period. Take away the prospect title. His only loss is that quick 30-second knockout to Syed Awad, and he avenged that loss. It was a fluke victory, and he absolutely, completely destroyed Syed Awad. He destroyed Alexander Sarnovsky, who was a top prospect in the lightweight division and welterweight division. He destroyed John Alessio. He destroyed a guy who just got signed to the UFC and fought in the UFC, albeit lost, but he had a tough fight. Drew Dober, he destroyed him a couple of years back. This is a guy who could be in the UFC and could be a top contender in the UFC. He's a top contender in Bellator. That's why he won the tournament, and in a very dominant fashion. And we've already said before, he's a very, very good wrestler. He's a very good athlete. He's just a freak athlete, period. He's training with American Top Team. He's down in Coconut Creek. And he's very young. He's only 26, 27 years old, and he's getting better and better and better. He's getting experience. He's had 14 fights. He's 13-1. And he's mentally prepared to go in there and fight Michael Chandler on 7 days' notice. He actually said yes. That's a big thing. Michael Chandler, let's talk about him. Michael Chandler is a guy who admittedly wasn't a fan of MMA before he got into the sport. He didn't watch MMA. He wasn't a fan of it first and then decided after he's seeing it on TV, oh, I want to do that. What happened was Michael Chandler was an athlete his whole life. Michael Chandler grew up in Missouri, and he attended the University of Missouri, and he was an NCAA wrestler, Division I wrestler, and he was an All-American, and he had this competitive drive, and he took it to MMA because there's nothing left. I mean, it's either the Olympics, which he wasn't doing, or MMA. So he chose MMA. He went the path of MMA, and he was really good at it. He had a couple fights in Strikeforce. Then he signed with Bellator, and he just started cleaning house in Bellator. And somehow, in like 9 fights, he beat Eddie Alvarez, who was obviously top 5 in the world, unanimously, with everyone. Michael Chandler is a freak athlete also. Michael Chandler is even more of a freak athlete than Will Brooks is. In Michael Chandler's last fight, he lost for the first time ever, his first defeat in 13 fights. And it was still a fight that most people, not most people, but I'd say 60% of people thought he won. So theoretically, Michael Chandler could be 13-0, and Will Brooks could be 14-0. When you let that sink in and you look at this fight, you go, holy shit, this is a fucking awesome fight between two of the best lightweights in the world. Will Brooks is one of the best lightweights in the world. Will Brooks is a top 15 lightweight. I will say it right now. And he could be a top 10 lightweight. And if he wins this fight, oh my God, it's huge for his career. Michael Chandler could be the Bellator champion right now. And this is the interim title fight. And I like that they put the interim label on it, even though Eddie's going to be back sometime this year. I like that they're putting the interim label on it because it gives just that little extra bit of importance to this fight. The winner of this fight deserves to be labeled as a champion because these guys are both champion caliber. I can honestly say I believe Michael Chandler is going to beat the crap out of Will Brooks. And I know it sounds crazy to say that after I just touted this fight up and I tried to hype it up as much as I can. I just think Michael Chandler is on another level. I think Michael Chandler may very well be the best lightweight in the world. I created that prospect list earlier that we kind of mentioned a little bit. Michael Chandler's not on it because he's ranked. He's not in the UFC, but if I'm ranking guys outside of the UFC, Michael Chandler is the top of my lightweight prospect list every single day of the year. Eddie Alvarez, and he's not even a prospect anymore. He's already there, Michael Chandler. But yeah, Michael Chandler, I think, beats Anthony Pettis. I think Michael Chandler beats most of those guys. I think Eddie Alvarez beats most of those guys. So I'm picking Michael Chandler, but this is going to be an entertaining fight. And one way or another, something good is going to happen. So tune in. Why not buy it?
Tune in. Fucking people, buy it with your money. It brings us to the main event. The last fight we're going to break down here. Quentin Rampage Jackson taking on King Mo Muhammad Lawal. Mo was really the man in the 205-pound weight class division until Manny Newton came along. Emmanuel Newton beat him twice, once at Bellator 90, once at Bellator 106. The first time was via spinning back fist, the second time via unanimous decision. Since then, Lawal came back and won sort of a gimme fight against Mikhail Zayats. Quentin Rampage Jackson lost his last fight in the UFC to Glover Teixeira, but since moving over to Bellator, He's defeated Joey Beltran and Christian Mapumbu. This is for, I'm pretty sure, this is the, this is the Season 10 Light Heavyweight Tournament Final. What do you all think of the fight? Rampage, a moderate favorite, but does King Mo have a chance to pull off the upset here?
What a great segue into this, and I know I'm going to get a lot of heat from the other people on this show for saying this. I didn't get to speak my mind if I was going to buy this pay-per-view or not earlier. I got skipped over, but I'm going to go into that now. You see, I've been sold on the Tito fight. I kind of want to see that fight, to be honest with you. But these other fights, I don't have any interest in. Not to bash Bellator. They do come here to the big city. Hopefully they'll be back soon. I'll go watch them then. But here's what it boils down to for me. I'm going to be at a casino Saturday night with my girlfriend. She works there. And on the other side of the casino from where she works, they show fights. It's a sports book. They show all the basketball, all the different sports, and they show fights. So first of all, if the casino buys Bellator pay-per-view, which they probably won't because they didn't even buy the Canelo Alvarez fight. So if they actually buy it, my predicament is getting up out of my chair and walking across the casino to watch these fights. And that's probably my biggest drawback right there, is if I'm actually going to get up, walk across the casino and watch these. Not to discredit anybody that's on the card. I don't know why. It just doesn't pique my interest. We're seeing washed up UFC fighters, guys that should be in the UFC. It boils down to this to me is like college football. I want to watch the best in the world. I want to watch the NFL. Rampage and King Mo. Man, I was a fan of Rampage, but he dropped down. I mean, he can't hang it in the UFC anymore, let's be honest. So he moves to Bellator. I simply just cannot get that off my mind. King Mo is actually a really big fan of his in Strikeforce. But again, I don't know. If you've got the talent, then you're going to be in the UFC. I truly believe that. Again, nothing against Bellator. They try to do the best they can. To quote somebody's father that is on this podcast, I remember back to the Rampage and King Mo build up, and I had some remarks, and I went along with this bastard father, and saying it was a little fishy. I'm not going to go out on the limb and say what he would say in this point, but I don't know. This fight's kind of... I just don't know. Somebody else take it.
I know Ross is going to disagree with that. Is he on the call?
If he's not, I'll just go ahead and put my 2 cents in. Let's be honest, there's no reason why King Mo should be fighting Rampage. The real main event that we want to see is Rampage versus Emmanuel Newton. I know Rampage said he didn't give a shit about titles, but let's be honest, that's how you make the most money in Bellator, and that's the number one thing that Rampage is concerned with is money. So he's going to knock out King Mo and then on to Emmanuel Newton next.
How do you think he would fare against Newton theoretically?
I don't know. Newton's I was pulling for Newton the last 2 fights. I like his really awkward, unorthodox style, and I think it has a chance of throwing Rampage off. Rampage is definitely a lot different fighter than he used to be. He doesn't implement his wrestling and takedowns as much as he did in the past. He
typically just tries to stand up and box. And I think if he does that maybe with Newton, he'll probably just get outpointed just like King Mo did. But who's to say he doesn't pressure Newton? Because I know King Mo wasn't really able to pressure Newton very well. Newton has a very good use of the octagon. He's really good at circling out and staying off of the wall, keeping his back away. So I don't know. I think that's a way more interesting fight than the King Mo fight. I think it's a lot closer too.
Unless
Hell
Ross
yeah.
is there.
Yeah, is Ross back yet?
I am here.
What do you think? King Mo Rampage.
Okay. It's no secret. Quentin Rampage Jackson is one of my favorite fighters of all time. He was one of the first fighters I ever watched, and he will always have a special place in my heart. Rampage left the UFC on that 3-fight losing streak, and because of his age, he's 35, and because of the fact that he had lost 3 straight, and he missed weight one of those fights, and people were wondering, oh, is Rampage done? They didn't think his heart was in it. Rampage has stated his frustrations with the UFC. He did not want to fight in the UFC anymore. It was clear. His heart was not in the UFC. He was done with the UFC. He has the money. He doesn't need the UFC. So he left the UFC and he signed with Bellator. And ever since he signed with Bellator, he's been happy. He's been training hard. He's made weight. He's been dieting. And he's won his last 2 fights. Both fights that he's had in Bellator by first-round knockout. And both of them were brutal as fuck. Rampage has looked good. Rampage has looked very good. And Rampage's knees are fixed up. When we really break it down, Rampage's 3 losses that he had at the end of his UFC career were to John Jones, who's number 1 pound for pound in most people's eyes, Glover Teixeira, who's ranked number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, up there at light heavyweight, top guy, top 5 in the world, basically, and Ryan Bader, who I have my reservations about that fight. Rampage missed weight, not his best performance. I think he probably could have beaten Bader. But Bader is also another guy who could very well be top 10 in the division, number 10 in the division. Rampage has since fixed up his knees. He's since changed his camp around. He's since changed organizations, and he's a completely different guy now. He's knocking guys out again. He seems to be rejuvenated and motivated, and he's looked the best he's looked since the beginning of his UFC career. King Mo, on the other hand, has had kind of a downward spiral. He was knocked out by Emmanuel Newton. First of all, let's go back. Let's go way back. King Mo's career is shorter than Rampage's, much shorter. So we can go way back to the beginning. King Mo came in. He came into Sengoku and he was on a tear. He fought at like heavyweight and he was knocking guys out left and right. He got top level competition for the area, for the organization at the time, from Fight One. And he ended up beating Gegard Mousasi, laying on Gegard Mousasi for 5 rounds because he was really just a wrestler with knockout power. And he would just wrestle guys and taking the Strikeforce belt. Then he was knocked out by Fei Zhao and tore his ACL because he was exposed. And then he went on a tear again. He knocked out Royce Gracie, then he knocked out Lorenz Larkin, but he tested positive for steroids. And then he had a huge staph infection, and he was out forever. He nearly lost his leg, and since then, he started working on his boxing a lot more. Since he's come back from this injury, he's worked on his boxing a lot. He's been at Mayweather Boxing Club, and he's fallen in love with his boxing, so much to the point where he's forgotten his real roots, and that's wrestling, and he's lost the ability to wrestle for MMA, really. His MMA wrestling is shitty, his fight IQ is shitty now, and his boxing is really not that good. He's too confident in his boxing, which makes his boxing bad. He's sloppy, he's kind of flat-footed, he holds his hands weird. He drops his hands. He holds one hand up, thinking You can shoulder roll and shit, this is MMA. You can't do shit like that. You're not Floyd Mayweather. He was knocked out by Emmanuel Newton. He had 2 wins against 2 bums, and then Emmanuel Newton beat him up again. He struggled against Mikhail Zayats, and I was front row for that fight. I was shot that entire fight, and Mikhail Zayats made him bleed his own blood. He gave him a really tough fight, and if you're fighting Quentin Rampage Jackson in the finals, you don't want to have a tough fight against Mikhail Zayats. You want to run through Mikhail Zayats, and King Mo did not do that. King Mo's jaw is not the strongest. His chin's not the strongest. His fight IQ is not the best. His cardio is not the best since the shit went down with the staph infection. King Mo is a shadow of what he could have been. Quentin Rampage Jackson seems to be on some kind of career resurgence. I think Quentin Rampage Jackson knocks out King Mo. And I think this is an awesome main event, though. I think there's heat behind these guys. They kind of have a pro wrestling angle going on here. They really don't like each other, even though they kind of made up. They had a mutual sponsor that made them kind of, be on good terms just for the publicity of the company. But now they're fighting each other. That shit's out the window. It's going to be entertaining as hell. Quentin Rampage Jackson, knockout, 1st or 2nd round.
And shout out to that sponsor, MMA Elite. Thanks for the shirts, guys.
Yeah, and you know what? That is an excellent note to end it on, Ross. I'm really glad you're back because no one breaks down a fight like you do. And I think that does it for the 90th episode of the MMA Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at the MMA Podcast. Visit themmapodcast.com. Click the links at the top to follow us on iTunes, YouTube, all that good shit. Shout out to our buddy Ramses at the Aunt Jimmy Show. His internet died. Shout out to Chris at C. Lowenstein. He died. Ninja Larson, where do we find you on the tweeters? Lead us out.
You can find me on Twitter at the Gracie Ninja. I am the world famous Gracie Ninja. Again, I have to do this every time. Shout out to my mentor, my brother, the man that literally saved my life. That's a story for another time. The greatest man on this planet, Renzo Gracie. He adopted me into his family. I love him with all my heart. Shout out to him. I love you guys. Thanks for letting me be on.
And Renzo, as a friend of the Ninja, thank you so much. If you want to hear the story, the video is on YouTube. Alan, where do we find you? Thank you so much for protecting the mean streets of Baton Rouge.
You can catch me on Twitter, Westland Eagle AH, and on Instagram. Sorry for being super tired, guys, but training's whipping my ass 2 times a day. Peace.
That's all good, man. We appreciate you being on. Last but not least, we got to close it out. Ross Finkelstein, where can we find you?
I'll tell you something. I've been back for a total of 2 weeks now. And in that time that I've been back, I've fucked shit up more than anybody could ever imagine. I thank every single one of you for listening and putting up with the shit that I give you each and every single week, because I can understand at times it can be a little annoying and I can be obnoxious, but that is exactly what I intend to do, because that is exactly who I am. I am annoying and I am obnoxious, and I don't apologize for any of it. And if I did apologize, well, I lied. Let me tell you something. This Tuesday, I'm going to put Jake through the gauntlet, and then I'm going to embarrass him if he gets through that gauntlet, because I'm going to beat his ass. If you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me on Twitter at Ross Finkelstein. E before the L. Thank you for tuning in to the MMA Podcast. You have been with a E. That's right. Before the L.
E before the L. Follow him on the Twitters. We appreciate the shit out of all of these support people. And that's it. Once again, follow us on Twitter, the MMA Podcast. We'll see you next week on The Word on the Street. We'll see you next week on the MMA Podcast. Thanks a bunch, guys. We got it.